Our first guest this morning loves his family so much that he's kindly paid for them to be frozen so that they can all be reunited in the future.
That is lovely. Dennis Kowalski is head of the Cryonics Institute in the US, which gives people the opportunity to preserve their bodies after they die by being frozen in liquid nitrogen in the tanks there. You see them. In one day, science will be able to bring them back to life.
So is there one person in each one of these tanks?
Oh,
well,
like
we're
asked
the question.
Yeah.
And listen, it's something Dennis believes could help people defeat death. And he joins us now to tell us more. Good morning there, Dennis.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Now, Dennis, you have dedicated your life to cheating death. Tell us about the work that you've put into this and what it means to you.
Well, in my day job, I was a firefighter and a paramedic, so I worked a lot of cardiac arrests, and yeah, I tried to cheat death as much as possible. And I like to joke around and say, as my night job, now I have an ambulance ride to a future hospital. We don't know if that hospital will ever exist, but we think that it's worth it. It's a gamble, in which case, if you don't sign up, if you don't get involved with cryonics, you're going to be in the control group, just like anyone who's buried or cremated. We know what happens to them, but if you do sign up, you never know. 100 years ago, you couldn't bring people back from the dead, but through cardiac defibrillation and CPR, we're able to bring people back today. We're able to do what was impossible 100 years ago. I think in another 100 years, we'll be able to do a lot of other things that are not possible today, and that's the whole premise of cryonics.
Well, tell us how it works, Dennis. I'm a Star Wars kid, so I've got Han Solo vibes in my head. So what's the process like?
Okay, so as soon as someone actually dies or goes into cardiac arrest, then we would call 911. I think you call it 999 in the UK. And after you attempt to revive that person, after about a half hour of attempts of medications and defibrillation and CPR, if it doesn't work, typically a person will be called on scene. But that's where we start. We continue the CPR. We put you on ice. We put in anticoagulants like heparin and sodium citrate, and then we ship you to to the facility where we hook you up to kind of like a heart-lung bypass, and then we perfuse your blood with cryoprotectants. The cryoprotectants were developed by our PhD cryobiologists. The same formulas that are used to preserve embryos and skin cells and other tissues are used to block the ice crystal damage and to keep you locked into a state of suspension and holds you indefinitely until the future might be able to bring you back. We don't know. It might not. But we think it's better than a 0% chance.
So let me get this straight. Tomorrow, so behind you, there are bodies in those tanks behind you right there?
Yep. There's about 6 people per tank. We've got over 256 people in the tanks right now. We've got pets. We've got tissue samples. We've got over 2,000 people signed up. Several hundred from Great Britain are signed up.
From Britain? Oh, so the Brits are getting involved in this. Yeah. Tell me something. How much does something like this actually cost?
Well, surprisingly, there again, it's affordable. It's about $28,000. You think of typical life insurance starts at $50,000 US. So $28,000 is not a lot, and people almost say, well, then you're going to run out of money. No, what we do, we're a nonprofit organization. All of our books are open for public scrutiny. That money gets invested in an endowment fund. The endowment fund puts it in index funds, and as long as the world economy is chugging along, as long as the whole economy hasn't fallen apart long term, there'll be money there on the interest to pay for the overhead, which is the taxes, the utilities, and all the salaries and the liquid nitrogen. So the money never really runs out. We don't mess with the principal. We just take that interest off, and then eventually, when we're able to revive someone, we use that money for the revival and reintegration into society, should that ever happen.
David, if I'm in there with 6 other people, what's the deal? Can I can I go in with Alison or...
What, in one of them tanks?
Yeah. Do you get a say as to who you go in with?
Well, you'd have to die at the same time. So, like,
I'm
you know,
down
if you
with
were
that.
on a trip together, and
If you're up for it, let's do it together. Yeah, what's interesting, Dennis, is the process is fascinating because you've got... So people sign up for it almost like they would a donor card in the UK, right? So you know when they die, you guys have to be there really super quick, yeah?
well, it's not necessarily us, too. We subcontract with other organizations. For instance, in Great Britain, they have UK Cryonics, which is a volunteer group that's set up with equipment and an ambulance and all the machinery and drugs needed to get a person what we call standby stabilization and transport, so that they can get them ready to ship over to the United States. So there's all kinds of organizations all over the world and locally all over the United States that help us out.
I mean, it's fascinating, this is. And Dennis, you've signed up all your family. How many of you are going to go into one of those tanks?
Well, I've got my wife and I've got 3 boys, and, you know, how many of us would give everything they own to bring back family members that, you know, you lost an uncle or a mother or father or sister or brother? I would. You know, I have a lot of friends and family, and I'd give everything. So I think $28,000 through life insurance is a relatively modest gamble for me. I mean, and so I think it's worth it.
Yeah. OK.
And then I'm thinking, I've got Demolition Man in my head now, Sly Stallone. What happens when you wake up in 200 years and you don't know anyone and everyone's eating a Taco Bell?
Well, I mean, that would be the reason to try to bring your family and friends along, which I'm doing. But also, a lot of the people that are frozen before me, I know them. I know these people.
You're fine.
So,
You've
and
got
I'll know
loads of
some of the
mates.
people afterwards.
You better die.
Yeah, but here's another thing. Just imagine if you passed and you had nobody, or if you came from a third world country to the first world, you'd make new friends, you'd learn new things, and you'd get on with your life. You'd grieve, obviously, but yeah, it's much better to bring your family with if they're on board with this.
Oh, my goodness. So have you got people in there who have been in there for decades at the moment?
Well, yeah, the organization, actually, the ideal started in the 60s with Professor Robert Ettinger. He was a World War II veteran, war hero in the Battle of the Bulge, and he's actually frozen with us, too. And since the 1960s, we actually incorporated in the 1970s, and yeah, people have been getting frozen all along, and we've got over 2,000 people signed up. We're the largest organization in the world that does this, and also the most affordable as well.
Listen, Dennis, thanks a lot. It's lovely to chat to you today.
Thank you so much. And if anyone has more questions, come visit our website at cryonics.org.
Lovely. Thank you, mate. Take care. Have a good day.
I reckon he's going to be getting loads of calls, I do.
Well,
lots of calls.
Well, let's see if that's the case, because is it really something that could work and bring back people in the future? We are joined in the studio now by neuroscientist and brain expert Dr Dean Burnett. Morning, Dean.
Morning, Dean.
So it sounds great, if that's your thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it... I mean, how possible is this?
I mean, I think that was a sort of a very positive outlook on it, but it's a long way off if it's possible at all, because I think the problem is people see this as like it's just a long, cold nap. It's not that. We're talking a serious physical change. Like if you fill your body full of liquid nitrogen, that's a massive, massive like biological disruption to everything, and especially the brain, which is like really, really fragile anyway. And you've got to bear in mind that the brain uses up like a quarter of your body's energy just by staying alive, just by sitting here doing nothing, just staying alive. Your brain is using up a quarter of your body's immediate sugar reserves. Now, you can't just turn that off and turn it back on again like it's a computer. It's a really demanding process. And the process of preserving tissues, you can do it with individual cells, or you can do it with like maybe an organ or two. The entire body, with especially the brain, which is all the different bits, all the different fragile connections, we don't know how to do that yet in a way which can be easily reversed. It's a really, really long, arduous process, and it's currently beyond us. We don't know if or when that will be possible.
So would you wake up brain damage then?
Almost certainly, if you wake up at all, like you would sort of like a lot of your brain would be missing. A lot of bits would be completely like scrambled. And even if you were sort of like intact and conscious, all the very fragile connections in your head, they are your memories. They're you. So like, what if half of those are gone? How do you rebuild those? You have to have some sort of pre-death, full-on brain scan, which is stored on a computer, and then rebuild your brain which would be great if we could do that. But if you could do that, you can cure Alzheimer's, you can cure paralysis. You know, I wouldn't think cryonics would be your first priority.
Right, so you think the first priority would be those degenerative...
Yeah, totally.
conditions.
That's a massive problem in the world right now. And if they figure out how to fix that, brilliant, please do. But, you know, they haven't yet, and I think that's still quite a way off.
Is this something you could ever see happening? Or do you think it's more science fiction than distant fact?
I can see it happening. I don't think it's very imminent. And I think if you sort of froze yourself now, there is so much that needs to happen in a relatively short space of time. And you know, as I said, like, it's preserved, like, you've got this money coming in constantly, but we don't know what's going to change. And you said, like, you rely on the world economy being completely stable for centuries.
In the best position right now.
I look at the news, I wouldn't say that's a guaranteed bet. That's a little bit more unstable than that. And it's a big deal to sort of try and bank on these things.
Yeah.
Dr Dean, thank you for bringing your expertise into the studio. I mean, it's a fascinating story and one I'm sure we'll still discuss in the future in 100 years' time. Well, listen.
Me and you in the tank together.
No,
thank you so much for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every single day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the morning.